Let me see if the broadcasting.
We are
Sarah?
broadcasting live. Yes, can you hear me, Jeronimo? I think we're
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. Can
brilliant.
you hear me as well?
Hello, everybody. This is Sarah Colata with Architecture Talk Tank. And we're broadcasting actually from Spain because my guest is in Madrid and I'm in northern part of Spain in Costa Brava. So this is like a local broadcast going international, and very excited because Jerónimo van Schendel, who is my guest today, is running an exciting program within Madrid, which is all dedicated to business of architecture. And we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of educating architects in business, specifically at the level of university, but also some interesting personal project which Jerónimo is running, which is also related to digital transformation and leveraging apps and technology to aid architects. So Jerónimo, first and foremost, thank you so much for joining me on this call. It's excellent to have you as my guest.
Well, it's a real pleasure. Thank you, Sarah, for the introduction. And I'm very, very pleased to be sharing this time with everyone, from Spain or Madrid to the world. So thanks for this time.
Brilliant. So let's just start straight away talking a little bit about the IE School of Architecture and Design that you are the academic director of, specifically for the Business of Architecture and Design master's degree. I'm familiar with your school because since I started to sort of educate a community around business and marketing, I've seen a lot of incredible content being put out by your university online. And I think that there is a real need, specifically at the level of university, to educate community of architects about business. So tell us a little bit about your experience with this course, as well as delivering that sort of education within the AEC industry.
Yeah, thank you. Well, actually, I think this program, the Master in Business for Architecture and Design, or MBArch, is hosted in the school that would be, at least in my opinion, the perfect home for such a program that bridges the gap or connects directly the business side and the architecture side. Because IE was born initially as a business school and then grew up as an international, very renowned university, but with a super strong business expertise and with a super strong, core of entrepreneurship training, expertise, and mindset. So the program itself, in a way, was directly born understanding that architecture is one of these disciplines central in a way to the way we live, and that as well connects the humanities, the technical part, with a drastical impact in economy, at least indirectly, but also in a way as well directly through the built environment industry and the construction industry, which accounts for, depending on where you look at, but between 6 and 13% of the GDP of the different global regions. So it's a huge industry that we really need to look into more in detail, especially if we come from design, right? And well, the program is basically aimed at, it's called Master in Business for Architecture and Design, because what it precisely tries to do is acknowledging the power of design, particularly spatial design, to transform our lives for the better, and acknowledging as well that that designers would, and architects and all types of spatial designers would highly benefit from gaining expertise and training on entrepreneurship, on innovation, and on the core business management discipline. So we cover in a way the whole spectrum of what it would be business training and entrepreneurship training, with 4 key tracks. One that is management, so where you go into financials, strategic management, operations for service companies, human resources management, and so on. Then we have an entrepreneurship track in itself, which is about understanding the problems in the industry, screening out opportunities, and giving shape to those opportunities in a structured and a strategic way. And then we have 2 complementary tracks that all run in parallel, as mentioned, that are the innovation and technology. So how do you embrace those as enablers for the new role, the new model of the architect that we are strongly convinced that is already growing and is already born, although we are starting to notice it. But it will definitely be completely different to what we have seen in the next 10 years. and then a final one which is on leadership. So we believe that changing the model of the architect or contributing to that change and also disrupting the industry in a way that is positive for you, for your company, and as well for the sector includes or implies a high degree or high level of awareness about yourself, about how you interact with your own company people, and about how you interact as well, or how you affect change as an influential professional in your realm, be it local, national, or international. So we also work quite strongly on that. And I'll leave it there to avoid being too long on my answer.
No, but this is amazing. And, I'm really excited for the fact that you cover such a broad range of topics, because as much as all of them are so extremely valid, I think that the fact that we get undereducated in business, specifically within the AEC industry, pushes us more to explore topics of how to actually get clients and how to land work, which again is still not a widely covered topic or provided for education-wise within our industry, but still it seems to be more important. And then I noticed that even when people are trying to answer questions related to sales and client acquisition, they omit or put less attention into leadership, team building, running operations, and a lot of other topics that are very strictly business, but are extremely useful for running a practice and becoming an entrepreneur within your own design studio as an architect or designer. So it sounds like the course alone is very comprehensive, and it goes through all these different topics. So tell me, what is your average student like? What would be the beginning of a journey for a person that joins your course?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think it's great, and it's really important as well. One of the things we always discuss about, and we always have very present in the School of Architecture and Design, is we want to expand the role of the architect, right? And that means a lot of things, among others, or among which, very importantly, training them in business and innovation and entrepreneurship, but as well learning to be more transdisciplinary or interdisciplinary, and engaging with people not only of other disciplines, but as well of different conditions and different background expertise within your realm, the realm of construction, in a way, right? The built environment at large. So our students in a typical year are about 30 to 40 students. They come from around 20 countries from the 5 continents. In the last 5 years, we've had that kind of profile consistently. All of them work and study. Well, there might be 1 or 2 that are full-time studying because that's their election, and they're perhaps taking some extra time to do or to pursue other projects, like starting a new company or things like that. But all of them are people, and the program is prepared as well to embrace work-study fashion, and as well, we believe that there's a lot of value in that direct interaction between what they are living at work, the projects they're trying to undertake, and what they see in the school, in the program. And then in terms of their background, which is also something very important, well, another thing that I think is very important is we have quite a balanced cohort of students. So this year, for instance, we have 56% women, and the remaining 100%, so 44 men, naturally, and well, that provides richness in a way. And in terms of background, we have people with 2 years of experience, and we also have people with more than 12 years of experience managing large projects and large teams, both technical and business teams, and also people having their own businesses, both in design, construction, and other related areas. But the average is about 5 years of experience. What we want is people that is energetic, vibrant, that they deeply believe in the value and the importance of the built environment and of design, if they come from that world, and that they want to expand their vision by interacting with people that come from other fields. So in a group, you might have someone that comes from landscape architecture, another person that is more into the interior, a few architects that do architecture, some in the private, in the public realm, someone that comes from a construction manager role, BIM managers, people that come from very different areas. Some come from global brands or global offices that are recognized by design. Say we have had students from big Foster & Partners, Chipperfield, Stefano Bori, you name it. And then also companies that are quite interesting, like startups that are disrupting the industry as well. They come from people that are organizing global fairs, like Dubai Expo at the time, and so on and so forth. And yeah, if there's something that I believe we look for, apart from, of course, talent and willingness to engage with this super diverse community, is belief in the power of design, in the power of creativity, in the value of, or in favor of the built environment. That's what I would say is key for us.
Yeah, and I think that it's extremely important to actually grow to be a more tenacious and confident leader within this industry, and actually understand how to create profitability and opportunities in business. And I think that that's really the key goal that people would be looking at after getting experience working for architecture practices or construction businesses, to actually step up and become leaders and maybe start their own businesses within this sector. And I believe that that's what those opportunities is what you create for the AEC community. So that's amazing. And yes, thank you for giving us that overview. Just a question, obviously, you're very familiar with the fact that in architecture, we don't get much business education. What would you say from a perspective of a person that is sort of on the forefront of providing that value in the community is the future for architecture education, especially in business? When we look into digital transformation, we look into sort of so many alternative also business models that are emerging right now. Do you foresee it somehow changing, and how would you define a change that can come upon the industry thanks to digital transformation?
Yeah, thank you. I think that's another wonderful question. I could be speaking about it for hours, but I think one of the key changes, well, there are two things that are important. First of all, understanding how we always speak about, we always refer to this as, it's not business or design, it's business in the favor of design, and business as an enabler of design. And I think one of the keys for the architect of the coming years is to understand how, by organizing things properly, being strategic, planning ahead, and having an open understanding of business models in architecture, and I'll get to that in a moment as the second part. But by having that sort of openness, you can generate much better design services, and in the end, do a much better service to the society through design for the built environment. To give you some examples, those that learn how to organize well an office, how to spare part of the capital they earn, and they also invest in doing things apart from the, let's say, operational component of running a project or winning a competition and so on, can start investing in different things, things like innovation, things like research, things like establishing new markets, and so on. And that, if it's well done, and of course, there's always in a company, there's always one of the goals for the sustainability of the business has to be to increase profit. But if that's also done with a perspective of value, you're reinforcing your company, you're putting it in a competitive advantage, and then you're concentrating capital to work in a quality environment that produces innovation, basically, right? So it's not the same, to give you a very simple example. If I give you €1 and I give everyone €1 to a group of 10 people, of course we could have a debate about spreading wealth and so on, and that's super important as well. We are also very keen on that. But if compared for this business case, you compare that to giving €10 to one person, every one of those persons that I have given €1, they can do only a handful of things, only a number of things. But you, with €10, you could do 100 more things, right? So you could be way more strategic and sophisticated in the way you manage your things, your money. And I think one of the key changes is letting aside this old, in a way, outdated idea that it's either business or design, and that has profound implications. The second part is related to this expansion of the vision of what an architect can do. And I think on the one hand, of course, sustainability, and on the other hand, very connected to sustainability, and that I will dwell on a little bit more, is the side of the digital in general, like embracing technology. And I think the architect historically has been in a way associated directly to the brick and mortar condition of our room,
or
but
manual.
the power, or manual, yeah, manual and brick and mortar tangible component. And I do think that needs to stay, but with an analogy that, if you want, is a bit cheesy, but I do believe it's quite direct. Is, if you take a tree, the higher the tree needs to go, or the wider the tree needs to expand, the wider and the deeper the roots need to go, right? So you need to have very clear that, yes, the built environment, the spatial experience is still going to be the core. And nowadays it's about 60% of the turnover of the architects' offices in the vast majority, or around that number, in the vast majority of the regions across the globe. But still, with that core, we need to start thinking about what other type of case studies, what other type of problems that the humanity is facing are deeply related to the spatial condition. And I think, for instance, data analytics from footage of different types of devices, that like cameras, like smart grids that understand how people and objects move and so on, have been automatically almost assigned to technologists, whereas arguably the leader, or at least the strategic leader on top of that, should be, if not alone, an architect or someone understanding the power of design, of spatial design, should be at least sharing that with the technologists. That's just one example, right? There's another really interesting, in my opinion, startup, just to mention one, that is called Chord. It's about curb management. And, we could think, yeah, well, this is for legal people that manage cities from the point of view of bureaucracy, or from the point of view of only of operations. But in the end, it's a radically spatial problem in a way. It is a central part of the outside urban experience to understand how our sidewalks are organized, and it's extremely strategic, right? So that's fundamental to understand that the architects goes there. And the third one will be the entrepreneurial mindset. And how do you, and I'll be short on this one, how do you identify those opportunities? The third thing is, the architect has always been, in a way, sitting back in the chair, right? Like waiting for the commission to come with a brief that is already set for me, where you need to do 56 units with 2 rooms and blah blah blah. And of course, that's going to be a key of cities still, and it's going to be a part of our business. But can we have a look at the decisions that have been taken before we actually get that brief? Can we have a participation in those decisions? And how can we be not only participating, but leading those decisions and creating the processes that end up producing that brief, attracting that investment, and producing value to the society as a leader, as an entrepreneur? And there are tons of opportunities. And I think the more we are trained about that, or on that, the more we are prepared, of course, to identify where we could initiate new processes, right? And I think that's key for the architect of the so to say 21st century, is being a proactive business model seeker and inventor with the core and the focus on spatial design, I would say.
Absolutely. Well, what a great answer. I mean, I want to pick it completely, because there's so many things you mentioned there that I would love to dive into. But something from that still stayed with me from the beginning of what you mentioned was that sort of sophistication and awareness of funding and how to spend it. And I think that comes with a certain maturity of understanding entrepreneurship to the level where you actually know how to allocate funds appropriately. So what I mean by it is, if we don't, and I've seen that, first of all, I experienced that on myself, because straight after finishing my design school in architecture, I started a practice. So I didn't really know what I'm signing up for from the very beginning until I became or grew into a role of having to lead and manage finances and sell and do marketing, and also once already sitting with the client to do the right negotiations so that I don't sign up for being underpaid for the next 2 years of my time and whatever. And that definitely took a lot of growing into, you know, some people intuitively have these qualities in them of being able to negotiate or not feeling uncomfortable with certain types of conversations at the table, and other people have to grow and learn into it. But something that I notice now being a business mentor is that I notice that a lot of people have this a real desire to change the world. I think that as architects, we're taught to problem solve, and so we're very focused on understanding problems, whether they're of social inclination or maybe ecologic or economic or whatever aspect we choose and try to solve. We may not struggle with finding the passion towards solving a problem, but there might be a struggle of actually understanding how to profit on it. So not always architects who are going out there trying to deliver sustainability solutions or solutions that are very problem focused actually manage to really make an income off of it, you know, in a way that deserves, or in the way in which we see that happen in other industries. And so what would you say could be the number one reason behind it? Is it under education? Is it something personal where people have to grow in personal confidence about financial management? Or does it have to do with just simply understanding business better?
Yeah, wow. In your questions, there's a lot of things as well. So yeah, it's like what I feel is like we are trying to paint the most wonderful painting with only 5 colors and one type of brush, right? But the world of painting, in the world of doing the similar with the world of architecture, has millions of colors, and you could use multiple types of tools. So why are we not looking at those tools? I think yes, there is definitely one component in education. I have had been lucky enough to study in 4 schools in 3 countries, and also teach in 3 schools in 3 countries as well. And having seen that, I think this is something I was always sort of, I could say, under or misunderstood probably while pushing this idea. But one of the things I said was, we need to have if you look at entrepreneurship education in general, there's a high component of, there's a high importance of well-structured free time within the educational curriculum, because that free time is one of the most valuable things you have when you're in university. A university is a no risk, apart from the intellectual risk, no risk environment to experiment and to create new knowledge. Because our education and because our profession is so time demanding, we do not have that time to put our attention in other things. We've been, in a way, I think, extremely or over focused on technical components, some technical components that, in fact, I think you can learn. And really, bear with me if I'm sounding a bit radical. I'm totally pro the technical training, but I think there are things that could be better tuned and balanced and counterweighted with other things like business training. If we had a little time to focus on that and to explore, some different paths of business apart from the one that is already pre-established, that we don't really think about it because it's there. It's always been there. You go, you open a practice, and it's going to be like a sort of consulting practice. There's no innovation in the way you build. There's no innovation in the way you estimate your costs and so on and so forth. And that happens because during 5 or 4 to 6, 7, depending on the country you are, years of training, you've been looking only into the technical and artistical component of design. But you really need to look into the rest of the equation, because in the end, we are part of a huge value chain, which is a value chain of the creation of the city, in which if we only look at that, we are just a segment of it. Whereas if we look at the whole thing, we could potentially be in multiple segments or choose to be in one of many segments instead of being, prefixed to be on the design task. So that is one thing. The other thing I believe is I think, how do I say all this? how do I say this, self-esteem or love for what we actually do. I think the last few decades, very few decades, but they've been quite tough on our profession. It's been a profession that was that has always been, you know, a life seeker in a way, but that has changed a lot, and its reputation due to many different factors has been affected, and I think has been pushed because of the sophistication of our market, both technologically and as well economically speaking and legally speaking. It's been pushed to a side place or side position in many aspects. But I do think that we keep being some of the most brilliant profiles, and it's not because I'm an architect. I truly, you know, live it out there when you see the different profiles that participate in our industry. We are some of the most brilliant, strategic, and important profiles to stick together all the other parts. People that only look into the finance, people that only look into the artistic part, only look into the political or the marketing or the communications part, and so on. And we are profiles that are both technical and artistic, which is quite important to have. We are used, because universities through studio teach us to do it, to do this thing that we refer to as learning by doing. So we're ready to start working on something that is 10 times more complex than when we actually can take on our own, but we're fine with it, and that is extremely valuable in today's world to manage uncertainty and changing environments and so on. And then we're also very good at synthesizing ideas, bringing together technical and non-technical language and so on. So all we need to know in a way is how to apply that beyond the only architectural component and adding that other thing that refers to value as a multifaceted thing. So value is not only the value of the architecture in itself as a piece of study, as a piece of history, as a piece of art, which is, of course, a central part of what we do, but it's also value for the society in many ways. It is economical value for different stakeholders. It is operational value for multiple stakeholders and so on. And if you understand that when you do a building, when you do an urban plan, when you do a concept for a competition or for a brand in general, you are, by doing a line, you're not only doing a wall, but you're doing 100 different things, then your mind expands automatically, I think. And if you, on top of having that mind expanded, then you have the number of brushes that would allow you to know, how to paint those paintings that you want to paint. Then it's super powerful, and it's not a change that you can do in one day, but with different generations, different years, in a number of years, like from 5 to 10 years, the profession will be radically different. And let me know if I should stop speaking, but if not, I could add something. In my experience, having been in positions where I have to, on the one hand, I've had to hire architects for offices for which I have worked, also for my own office a few years ago, and as well, I do recruit students as well, or I do screen student profiles all over the world, and I also now hire people for the company we're doing, Buildia. Having seen that, I can definitely tell you that the profile of people that we see, especially young, recent graduates in the last 5 years or 7 years, has radically changed. What they look for, the values they have, the way they understand companies, the way they understand architecture. If you ask in a classroom, what is the path that you want to do? What do you want to do with this phenomenal training and super multidisciplinary and jackbox of training that is architecture? What do you want to do? The answer is less and less brick and mortar only, and more, yes, there is brick and mortar, but there is all of these things on top. And one of these other ideas that the architect is different is of these ideas that I'm radically against. The architect is similar, if you want, but just a little bit better, if you want. At least that would be a little bit, I don't know how to say, it's also cheesy, but if you want to think you're different, think you're better, but do not think you're different and that you're someone that is not understood or something like that. There's an issue of communication and of understanding how other industries behave, and there's a lot to learn from them. And the more you learn and the more you relate, the better you will be able to affect change and be impactful. If you look at successful architecture businesses everywhere, you'll see that those that are more impactful and more successful, regardless of the architectural style or the value proposition that makes the core of their companies, are those that are more polyphacetic in the way they do business. They do good design, but yes, they also do good marketing, they do good strategy, they do good communication, and so on and so forth. So
absolutely, yeah, and I think that this is very important, that learning all of this for yourself, even if we start with small practices or maybe even being sole practitioners, to get those skills so that we can present ourselves better to the world, right? And I think that understanding all these facets, even on a small level of just an individual, makes or breaks the situation. And that's on one hand. And on the other also, when we start talking about technology and digital transformation, there is this expansion of possibilities of business that goes beyond the traditional way in which we deliver architecture services. And this is where the fun begins, because we start finding businesses such as Buildia, for example, which we'll talk about in a minute, but also individuals that are devoted to architecture, interested in architecture, but simply choose to deliver other type of services than design, through development of applications, education, and leveraging digital transformation tools to help people and build communities. And so there is this sort of transformation, and innovation happening within the business, within the AEC industry, and how we deliver value to one another, which does not only focus only on design services. So that leads me to wanting to discover more about Buildia. Tell me a little bit more about this business and the idea of it. I really love how, first of all, it's been funded, because it's not the type of model of financial funding. It's not something that we see very often within architecture design, but certainly more so in development of apps or technological sort of products that are available today. And tell us a little bit about Buildia, the value that it provides, but also the business model behind it and how it's aiming to help people within our industry.
yeah, of course. Thank you for the question as well. Well, we are if we could say our vision is to become the market network of construction. And for those that are listening, if you look at market network, it's quite a particular model of digital platform, or that blends together an environment of that would be done through a SaaS, software as a service. So basically a software that can do different things for in this case a company. Also some component of marketplace, where there are different companies interacting commercially in different fashion, in different ways, and then some component of a network, just a social network in relation to building connections, establishing a living and growing portfolio of work that you don't have to necessarily put a lot of time, but sort of builds alone. Market networks are more and more present in businesses the more the internet becomes mature, and the more we move from digitization on the B2C to the B2B world, and the more we need to start organizing complex interactions in the digital world. If we speak about complex interactions, then probably construction is the industry to speak about complexity, right? Buildings are extremely complex, although they're becoming off-site builds. We still have a transition to do there, and the next 20 years are probably going to be very much about that, with still a lot of on-site and prototyped, if you want, construction and design done. So in the end, a building is still going to remain for some years, despite the transformation, in which we also believe quite hardly. It's still going to be remaining like a prototype that you need to build. Basically, you need to define everything you need, all the services, or all the services, or the materials, or the systems, and so on, need to be procured, need to be identified, need to be measured, and so on, and then managed as an ecosystem of stakeholders and of suppliers, right? So what we do is we digitize all of these tasks of breaking down a building, a project in general, into all the types of systems, services, and stakeholders that that it has, and helping companies, real estate development and builders, basically helping them to organize all of that within one single data structure for the digital project, to do all the procurement operations, and then to manage that ecosystem, and then to also have the power of data. Since it's all organized by projects, you have all the power of data of everything that you've been doing throughout the project from beginning to end in terms of its procurement and its commercial operation. So you can do it as a company, one by one, project by project, and that is our core initial value as a software as a service that optimizes and automates all your procurement and tendering and bidding and basically contracting operations. But one by one, doing those projects one by one, you build a portfolio, you build a network, and every other company builds their own network in a connected ecosystem that ends up producing exponential value for the industry. So in the end, what we do is we save by automating operations, adding also automating the presence in the digital world, and putting the focus on procurement. We reduce the time, reduce the costs drastically of these companies. We increase traceability up to 100%, and in the end, basically, we make them live a better professional day to day. And in terms of how it's been funded, well, it's a startup. In the end, we have been listed as one of the 100 most innovative companies in Spain in 2021 by the reference magazine El Referente. And basically, we were lucky enough to have the support from wonderful investment funds, both from Spain, Portugal, and Germany, and as well, some business angels from Spain, from France, and from Colombia as well. That in the end, what they bring is an ecosystem of knowledge beyond the value of the capital itself. So we count on funds like APX, the funds by Axel Springer and Porsche, Encomenda, who was one of the early founders of Globo and Habitissimo in Spain. We count as well on Indico Capital Partners, JB20, Juan José Mostazo, Sebastián Noguera, a lot of important people that know very much how to build a company, how to scale it, and provide a lot of knowledge, which is key. And I would say there, if there's a lesson we have learned on that level, beyond the fact that you learn how to sell, you learn how to develop digital projects and so on and so forth, manage operations and so on. If there's one thing that we have, in a way, I wouldn't say learned, but our list of priorities, it has been raising, climbing up to the top, has been building an ecosystem of knowledge around you. And I think that's something the architectural profession also needs to reflect deeply about. We come from a model that was based on authorship, if you want, in which the architect was this inspired voice that had a total authority, and the whole artistic, input was sort of coming from one end, going to co-creation that is already present in many of the most successful practices worldwide, and that I think is based on the idea that you, as a founder, as a lead architect, need to build an ecosystem of people that know, if not more, at least the same than you, but in other aspects in a complementary way, so that your company can actually grow alone and scale. It's not about controlling the people that work for you. It's about empowering the people that work with you, and it's very different. And for that, having that ecosystem is fundamental.
What I really love about it is, and I think that it's really worth mentioning, because for the longest time, and that was certainly the case at my university for architecture, we've been learning from people that were not fully successful, perhaps, in implementing what they actually teach. So, architects that perhaps have never really started their own businesses or have never worked for a big business, but went into tutorship and ended up teaching at universities, that perhaps don't have practical knowledge. And I think that that's something that I see of tremendous value, is the fact that you, in the personal space or professionally outside of your academic involvement with the university, you also show a successful implication of all those things. And I think that that definitely is a great testimony for a lot of the people that might perhaps explore an opportunity studying at the IE, to look at the fact that basically it's run by people that are very capable and actually apply what they teach in their own personal life and show proof for that to be successful. Which definitely makes a difference, I think. And we do struggle within architecture with this principle of whether, some universities certainly are run by people that have successful architecture practices, but not all. And we see that globally. So that also contributes to a lack of architecture, business education within architecture, and the right relevant type of business education. And what I see happen here is certainly that not only there is this personal application, but also it's really future looking. It's very innovative. It solves a problem beyond sort of just the traditional means in which we solve these problems, but it's looking into technology, it's looking into future development of communication and community online, digitally, but also applications and technology. So really kudos about that. I really appreciate it. And I think for all the listeners, guys, this is just a great example of how things can be applied in the professional world as well as education. And I certainly would love to learn from people that are successful and teach business. So let's just sort of summarize where people can go, first of all, and find the university if they're more interested in reading more and finding out about the different courses that you have that are specifically crafted for the AEC industry in business and marketing. And then we'll talk a little bit about where to find Buildia.
Great. Well, thank you for your kind words. We do the best we can to be successful. Startup is not an easy journey, but it's a very exciting journey. And I think, it's about managing risk, and innovation is as well about managing risk. So we're very, I think, pleased so far to where we are, but of course, looking forward for more progress in terms of how to find what we do, both in the Buildia and the School of Architecture and Design. Well, I think IE is just I as in Italy, E as in España. So or in East, so it's very easy to find. That's a huge school. Within that, you have the School of Architecture and Design, and within that, we have several programs, both bachelor and master programs, official and not official. Depending on your interest, you'll find probably, I think, quite an interesting portfolio, and quite a different portfolio from other schools in terms of the offer. Also in terms of the format as well, in terms of how it allows you to work and study, but also if you want to do full-time, there are options to do full-time, and so on and so forth. The School of Architecture and Design, within the masters, there is a master in business for architecture and design. So if you put MBArch, so as an MBA with the RCH at the end, you'll find the program I lead particularly, but there are many others. We have real estate, we have strategic interior design, we have a global master in real estate as well, and then we have the bachelor in design, bachelor in architecture. There's going to be more things coming up very soon in urban studies and so on. In terms of Buildia, it's www.buildia.com. So, cha-chan, very easy. And for the moment, we're operating only in Spain. So if you're curious about it, you can definitely look at our website and our LinkedIn, and we encourage you to follow us. We'll be releasing a lot of things in the coming months. We're preparing our marketing plan and communications plan for 2022. And yeah, I mean the website is in Spanish because we directly engage with the Spanish market of B2B in construction, which operates mainly in Spanish, but we're looking into international markets as well, and you can also translate that if you're curious with only a click on the button. So very happy to have you on our network.
Everything appeared all in English for me, even though I read and understand Spanish. But yeah, it is the website is already made to be accessible internationally. So so guys, check it out. And Jeronimo, thank you so much for joining me today. It was really truly an incredible conversation. Thank you for sharing your experience, both from the level of academia as well as your personal journey in your career. And I'm really looking forward to see more from you in the future. So thank you so much again, and thanks guys for tuning in. Thank you for the comments, even though we didn't have any questions, but it's really great to see you also tune in and listen into those. For all of you who are listening on LinkedIn or Facebook, if you haven't yet, go to YouTube at Sara Colata and subscribe to the channel, where you will be notified every time we go live. But of course, you can still remain on LinkedIn and Facebook following these, because we stream live to all these platforms. So thank you so much, everyone. Happy Christmas and New Year soon. I don't think we're going to have another broadcast before the New Year. However, we are preparing some exciting things in the new year for you. So tune in if you haven't yet. Subscribe to the mailing list, which you find at saracolata.com. And you'll be notified about new exciting things like event training, as well as new podcasts coming out in the new year. So thank you so much. Thank you, Jeronimo, and I'll see you all in the new year.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I forgot to say one thing. If you are in Spain at the moment and looking for job opportunities, maybe just connect to us or look in LinkedIn. We're posting our applications there. And Merry Christmas. Thank you,
Merry
Sarah.
Christmas.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye, guys.